policies as an organization and as a conference is to explore universal themes rather than themes that affect a particular group of people. And of course, mental health is something that affects absolutely every single one of us. And so I love Project Blackbird and was excited to support the project and support Alex's work. And what we thought we would do is just have a little conversation about some of the ways in which all of you, with your brilliant minds, can stay brilliant and become even shinier, if that's possible. Doesn't seem possible from here. There's a lot of light coming out from the room here. And to explore that. And just before we started, Alex and I were talking about what we would discuss. And you were saying that one of the first steps, which I think was mentioned in the video there, is allowing yourself to recognize that maybe you're not doing great. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So you saw a little bit about the organization, where it started, where it came from, the young woman that I went to treatment with back in 2018. And so for myself, that piece of my own journey, my journey to recovery, but my journey to really find out who I really was inside was to finally become vocal about what I was struggling with. And I was able to do so because she also was able to do so. We connected. We both were authentic and vulnerable, and we realized along the way, and as we take this on tour, we continue to realize that this is not a unique experience, that there are so many individuals out there that are thriving and glowing and finally able to connect with their friends. We took this to South by Southwest, and we had a men's mental health panel with 3 different NFL players. And I interviewed all 3 of them separately, so they had no idea what each other was going to say. And all 3 of them told me the exact same thing when I said, what was it like when you were finally honest with your friends and family that you struggled? And all 3 of them said, with this body language, oh my God, it was amazing. It was like finally I was myself, and this wall came down and I was connecting with everybody, and all of a sudden, you know, they knew who I was, and I hadn't felt like myself in so long. And that was it. They hadn't felt like themselves in so long. Now, I'm not here to say that it's something that is easy, because I can tell you that I still struggle every single day, and I still go through this, and I have multiple practices in place to champion myself now and my own mental health. But I can say with certainty that the more I acknowledge what I'm going through, the more I feel like I know exactly who I am. And that is what allows me to be present in the moment, connect with you, connect with somebody in the back of the room, connect with my friends, and create and be a part of this planet, because I was not a part before.
So I said at the beginning of the day today, this experiment where you give yourself 5 minutes. I think we've spoken about this before. 5 minutes a day where you don't judge yourself. And I believe that if you judge yourself, you can never know yourself, because you don't actually witness yourself. You witness the judgment. And so what you're describing sounds to me a lot like becoming more authentic. That if you 100%. Are going to create authentically, you need to do so as yourself, right?
100%.
So what are some, I mean, this sounds like, to me, what you're describing sounds like a kind of watershed turning point for somebody. But how do you get to that point? What are some approaches that people can take to lean into authenticity and to removing judgment?
So one thing that has helped me a lot, I put on my computer, right before I started this organization, a little sticky note that said, set your own precedents. And I realized that in my eating disorder, in my anxiety, in my struggles, I was constantly comparing myself and looking towards others for the answer. But then I realized that the people that I was looking at were looking at somebody else for the answer. Why are we not setting our own precedents? Why are we not looking at ourselves as the leaders? So I think one thing is set your own precedents and look at yourself as the leader, because we're individuals not knowing where we're going or why we're meant to be here, leaning towards other individuals that don't know why they're there in order for the answer. So I think that would be the first thing that I would say. And then The second thing is when you realize that we're all so similar, but we're also different beings. We have different needs, we have different likes, different wants. I made a list of things that that I did not like, that many people loved, and decided, okay, I'm starting to shape my identity. This is me. I'm not everybody else. Clubbing for me. I never liked clubbing. In college, everybody would go clubbing, and I always would push myself to do that, want to be there because I thought that's what was cool or what was normal. I guarantee half of this room probably, more than half of this room probably hates clubbing, but but we don't talk about these things because we think that they're normal, and there just is no normal. So I think when I started to identify my dislikes that I thought were likes, and then my likes that other people did not like, I started to shape a little bit of my uniqueness and authenticity and figure out who I was. So I think those are some fun strategies, if you will.
So you just said something that I'm really into myself about there is no normal, right? I want to hear your thoughts on this because, so I believe we get to about 7 years old, somewhere between 6 years old and 8 years old, and that's you for the rest of your life. That's the point at which you individuate, you recognize that other people are subjective in the same way that you are, that they get hurt in the same way that you do. And then we have this concept of normal, which really means acceptable.
Yes.
So what is normal? What does that mean really? What is an authentic version of normal? We're doing philosophy 101 here.
Yeah. I mean, what is normal? I honestly think we'll reach normal when there is no definition of normal, when there is no normal.
Right.
I mean, that really will be the point where I think we would be living in true authenticity, when that doesn't have a definition.
So that's the word, isn't it? Authenticity. So to my mind, we've got normal, which just means most common. It's the majority average. It's not even, what's the other one? The median average or whatever it is.
Outliers.
Yeah. So you've got the most common, which is normal. And then you've got natural. So you could say that something is natural or unnatural. You can say something is normal or abnormal. So normal and abnormal is like a statistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many people are wearing shoes? Well, it's normal. Obviously, it's normal for people to wear shoes. Is that natural or unnatural? Much broader question, right? But then you have authentic and inauthentic. So it seems to me that we're not going to go all the way into the question of life purpose. We can discuss that over lunch. But, but perhaps if there is a way to identify what you're supposed to be doing, if you can use that phrase, it should be authentic, right? You've used this word a couple of times. So, but it seems to me as social primates, we want to be acceptable. So how do people navigate those two challenges to be what they believe to be acceptable versus authentically themselves?
Yeah.
And an old psychologist friend of mine many years ago used to say 90%, most of the problems you have are because of what you think other people think about you.
Yeah.
So how do you work around that?
So, at least in my mind, acceptable, accepted, belonging, connected is kind of the chain of words that I would draw together. I think most people, when they want to act in a way that's acceptable, it's because they deep down want to connect. They want to be connected to this society that we live in. Now, I've done a lot of thinking about this because I do acknowledge that in this day and age, there are a lot of things, and specifically in the eating disorder world with body image, there's a lot of messages we receive. You can be connected through exercise, workout programs, shaping your body, different diets, things like that. But it's a very surface level connection. And so I think if you can really have this conversation with yourself and say, yes, I can be connected in that manner, but at what cost to my actual deep connections? Because you're not really connecting, therefore you're not really accepted.
So you're alone.
You're alone. I mean,
in a room full of strangers.
it causes connection momentarily and then causes long-term disconnection. If that kind of answers.
No, I'm pausing meaningfully because has anyone heard of Pinter, the playwright?
Oh, yeah.
Famous playwright.
Yeah.
And my favorite line in any play ever is in Pinter's, I think it's The Caretaker. He says, pauses vaguely. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I can't even do it. How do you pause vaguely? So you were talking about real connection. So this is kind of what I was saying at the beginning of the day about embracing what is real. And we live in a society where one of the things I've noticed, particularly with younger members of society, is they have a public image, and that public image is presented online. So it'll be Instagram or, whatever, Snapchat now or TikTok, whatever. But it's not that they see that representation as a presentation of themselves. They see that as themselves. So if somebody criticizes something that they presented, maybe a photo of themselves in a certain way, they don't feel like the photo was criticized. They feel like they were criticized. Yeah. So it's identifying with your mask and not recognizing that the mask is separate from you. So how do we establish relationships with people where the two beings behind the mask peek out and say, hey, are you confused? Because I've got no idea what's going on. Yeah, you too? Great. Okay, let's eat some cheese or whatever. How do you do that? How do people make those real connections?
It's a really great question. I think you see it a lot when you watch children. And that's one thing that's beautiful. Before we learn really to be socialized in this manner, you see children say the silliest things. Like, honestly, a child might walk up to you in a grocery store. My brother did this to a man at the grocery store, and he goes, "You're bald," and the guy says, "And you're young," and my brother says, and then they just go on and on. And I mean, it's just very silly. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not meaningful, so to speak, but it's just real and authentic. And so I think, one, finding those childhood friends maybe, or finding the closest people in your circle and starting there to just practicing that becoming a new normal. I have actually noticed, and I've tried to pick up on some individuals so that I can practice this myself, but I go to film festivals a lot. My background is in film. And I really have started more recently meeting a lot of individuals who are just very much themselves, authentic, goofy, in yesterday's society maybe would have been deemed strange or weird, just for being blunt and saying it like it is. And I've actually noticed that we get along much better than I get along with many others, and I've become much closer with them. So just trying to recognize that, and then maybe just practicing it with your friends. I don't know, what are your thoughts around?
I love this. I remember reading years and years ago a fantastic way of approaching that, because we're all a little bit nervous we'll be rejected, right? That's what it comes down to. We're social primates, and we're all afraid that we'll say, I like you, do you like me? And the other person will say, you smell funny.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know who you are, leave me alone. I'm going to call the police. I mean, I only get that a couple of times a week now. It's cut down from a dozen. But this, I forget the name of the guy. He tried out all these self-help things, right? He tried out all this stuff. And he said that when we meet people, what we do is we believe we're controlling the information exchange. So we limit the information we're giving. And so does the other person. And it's very safe because you can control how much you share and how vulnerable you make yourself. But it's very slow. And he said, actually what works, and I've tested this for decades and it really, really works, please try this, it's fantastic, is you act on the presumption that we are all one. There is no you and me, there is no other. I mean, essentially that's the problem with prejudice in general, isn't it? Is the belief that there is an other. And that it's them and us.
Yeah.
So he said, there is no them. There never has been. There's just us. We're all family. We're all basically... But he said, like, fundamentally, you're not even meeting another being. It's you. And now there's nothing to discover. There's nothing to reveal. It's like noticing your elbow for the first time in a while. Like, oh, I haven't looked at my elbow recently. I have an elbow. Like, you meet a person, don't call them an elbow, really... but you meet a person and so you're remembering one another. And so the judgment is irrelevant. It's like judging your hand. Like, your opinion is irrelevant. And it seems to me that it's the approval and disapproval part of the interaction that's the problem. If we could just not have that for a bit, it would be great. First time I went to the Cannes Film Festival, does anyone ever go to the Cannes Film Festival? So has anyone heard of the Cannes Pajama Party? That's my party. So I founded that party.
And
right?
it's amazing.
I know you've been there. I founded that party, and we created it because we were so frustrated with people trying to look cool and, the red ropes and elitism and everything. So we created a party where we specifically do not care who comes. It's a lottery. And the result is, but you can only come in if you're wearing pajamas. No sexy stuff, no lingerie. And so everyone's armor's off, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you're describing, in a way, is taking off your emotional armor. And there's this thing in psychology called reciprocal psychology. So if I act like a parent, it's hard for you to avoid acting like a child. If I act like a child, it's hard for you to avoid parenting me.
Yeah.
But if I insist on relating to you as an adult, we end up leveling out and relating to one another that way. And this works across the board. So if I allow myself to be vulnerable with you, maybe you'll feel safe being vulnerable with me.
100%. I think that's beautiful, brilliant, and really, really well said.
Which is what you said at the start, right? That admitting that you're having a rough day.
It makes it safer for somebody else to do the same.
So sometimes with my partner, I'll say to her, just so we're clear, I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
And I need coffee. So I'm not going to be held responsible for anything I say until I've had coffee. And she's like, okay. Let's get you coffee.
That really works for you?
No. Shh, this is being recorded. Yeah. Yes, every time.
Well.
Yes. But acknowledging, right? Being real. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say, I know we need to wrap up, what would you say is the hardest part of that process and the easiest part?
The hardest part of that process is that there are individuals out there that will not reciprocate. You will come across those that are not ready to let their emotional wall down. And that's hard. And can make you feel worthless, disconnected, embarrassed. I mean, and can go into a shame kind of spiral. You feel almost inhumane. I mean, you don't feel like a person. I mean, it's really hard to be on that level. So knowing that there are those that you might be more disconnected with because they will never get there. They will never match that. So that's the most challenging piece. And what was the second?
The easiest.
The easiest. The easiest piece is that technically you really don't have to think or do anything. You just have to be and stop spiraling. And if you can just relax and be, it's not that easy. But I don't know, the easiest part of it, I think, is that our world is beginning to change. And I can tell you, as we've taken this on tour to so many universities, I really thought there was going to be a big barrier to reach these students, and every single school, all of them have leaned into this. We do a journal prompt where we give out a journal to our audience, and they all journal what they struggle with, and then a message of hope to both themselves and a future participant. And almost every single student in that audience will then, upon request, leave it behind anonymously for somebody and take home someone else's. And I go through all of these responses, and they are all actively participating. So there is an openness to want to change the mindset around mental health. The world is open to this concept. I think that's the easiest part of it, is that people will be receptive. While some may not, there's a world that very much will.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Well, that is a perfect note for us to bring the conversation to a close here, and we can take the conversation there, where you will find sandwiches. So, first of all, thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you for putting this together. And I can't wait to connect with all the beautiful minds out here.